Brian Kohberger just made a confession that nobody saw coming.
We do have some breaking news just into the newsroom. Brian Kohberger released minutes ago. This photo comes to us from ABC correspondent
Brian Kohberger, the monster who killed 4 college roommates. He'd just been pulled over for speeding.
You realize this is 35?
Oh, it's 35?
It is, yeah, so you go.
After 2.5 years of claiming his innocence, the criminology graduate student suddenly stood up in a courtroom and admitted to murdering 4 University of Idaho students. This is the case that captivated America, and we need to talk about what this shocking turn of events really means. On November 13th, 2022, 4 college students were brutally stabbed to death in their off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Zaina Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin had their lives cut short in what appeared to be a random attack. For weeks, police had no suspects. Then Brian Kohberger, a PhD student studying criminology at nearby Washington State University, was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. From day one, Kohberger maintained his innocence. His defense team was preparing to challenge DNA evidence and suggest other suspects could have committed these crimes. They were ready to fight this case all the way to trial. Jury selection was scheduled to start in August 2025. Everything was moving toward what would have been one of the most watched murder trials in recent history. But then something changed. In July 2025, Kohberger's legal team reached out to prosecutors with an unexpected proposal. They wanted to make a deal. Not just any deal, but a complete reversal of their entire defense strategy. Here's what happened behind closed doors. Kohberger's attorneys knew the evidence against their client was overwhelming. The prosecution had DNA evidence linking him to the crime scene. They had cell phone data showing he was in the area multiple times before the murders. They had his white Hyundai Elantra captured on surveillance footage, and they had witness testimony that would have been devastating at trial. The plea deal was straightforward but shocking. Kohberger would plead guilty to all charges in exchange for life in prison without parole, instead of facing the death penalty. For families who had been preparing for years of legal battles, this was both a relief and a source of controversy. When Kohberger appeared in court for his change of plea hearing, the atmosphere was electric. Judge Stephen Hippler methodically asked him about each victim. Did you murder Kaylee Goncalves? Yes. Did you murder Madison Mogen? Yes. Did you murder Zaina Kernodle? Yes. Did you murder Ethan Chapin? Yes. Each answer came without emotion, without explanation, just a simple admission of guilt. But here's what's really disturbing about this case. Kohberger was studying criminology when he committed these murders. He was literally learning about criminal behavior while planning and executing his own crime. His professors described him as intelligent but socially awkward. Classmates remember him making inappropriate comments about violent crimes during class discussions. The investigation revealed some chilling details about Kohberger's behavior before the murders. Cell phone data showed he had driven to the Moscow area at least 12 times before November 13th. He wasn't just randomly in the neighborhood. He was stalking the area, learning the layout, watching the house where these students lived. What makes this case even more twisted is that Kohberger appeared to be following his own case online after his arrest. He was reading news articles about the investigation. He was tracking public opinion about his guilt or innocence. This wasn't someone who committed a crime of passion. This was calculated, premeditated murder by someone who thought he was smarter than law enforcement. The surviving roommates had to live with the trauma of being in the house when their friends were murdered. Bethany Funke and Dylan Mortensen provided crucial testimony about what they heard that night. Their accounts helped investigators piece together the timeline of the murders. These young women showed incredible strength throughout this entire process. The families of the victims had mixed reactions to the plea deal. Some felt relief that they wouldn't have to endure a lengthy trial. Madison Mogen's father said the deal gave the family a chance to focus on healing instead of reliving the trauma in court. But Kaylee Goncalves' family wanted Kohberger to face the death penalty. They felt cheated out of the justice they believed their daughter deserved. This brings up important questions about our criminal justice system. Should defendants be able to avoid the death penalty simply by pleading guilty? Some argue that life without parole is actually a harsher punishment than execution. Others believe that certain crimes are so heinous that only the ultimate penalty is appropriate. The investigation also revealed failures in campus security and student safety protocols. These students were living in an off-campus house with minimal security measures. The killer was able to enter and exit without triggering any alarms or security cameras that could have immediately identified him. Universities across the country are now reviewing their safety procedures because of this case. From a legal strategy perspective, Kohberger's decision to plead guilty was probably his only rational choice. The evidence against him was overwhelming. DNA doesn't lie. Cell phone data doesn't lie. Surveillance footage doesn't lie. His defense team knew that going to trial would almost certainly result in a conviction and a death sentence. By pleading guilty, they saved his life. But this plea deal also means we may never know the full truth about why Kohberger committed these murders. Prosecutors believe he was obsessed with committing the perfect crime. They think he chose these victims because he could access their house and because he thought he could get away with it. We'll never hear his explanation because he'll never have to testify about his motives.
The case has broader implications for how we think about violence and criminal behavior. Kohberger wasn't some random drifter or career criminal. He was an educated graduate student who appeared to be pursuing a legitimate academic career. This challenges our assumptions about who commits violent crimes and why.
Campus communities across America are still grappling with the implications of this case. How do you protect students from someone who appears completely normal but is capable of such violence? How do you identify warning signs when the perpetrator is intelligent enough to hide their intentions?
The technological aspects of this investigation were crucial to solving the case. DNA evidence, cell phone tracking, and surveillance footage created an overwhelming case against Kohberger. This shows how modern investigative techniques can solve even the most complex crimes, but it also raises privacy concerns about how much data law enforcement can access about our daily movements and activities.
On July 23, 2025, Judge Stephen Hippler sentenced Kohberger to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for burglary. The judge acknowledged that Kohberger's motive may never be fully understood. He spoke directly to the families, recognizing their loss and their strength throughout this process.
The sentencing hearing was emotional. Family members gave victim impact statements describing how these murders destroyed their lives. They talked about dreams that will never be fulfilled, graduations that will never happen, weddings that will never take place. Their words showed the true cost of Kohberger's crimes. This case will be studied by criminologists and legal experts for years to come. It's a perfect example of how modern investigative techniques can solve complex crimes. It's also a cautionary tale about the dangers that can hide behind an ordinary facade.
Brian Kohberger is now 30 years old. He will spend the rest of his life in prison, never again walking free. The families of his victims finally have some measure of justice, even if it's not exactly what they all wanted. And the rest of us are left to wonder how someone who seemed so normal could commit such horrific acts. The Idaho murders case is closed, but the questions it raises about violence, justice, and campus safety will continue to be debated for years to come. Thanks for joining us today at Due Process Daily. Throw us a like and consider subscribing to the channel to help us grow.